Welcome to the Feel Your Best Formula podcast. Are you over 40 and tired of struggling with your weight, dieting, and constantly feeling like you're starting over with nutrition and fitness? Do you wish you had more energy? Do you want to lose weight and finally keep it off for good? I'm Lil, a certified nutrition coach and former registered nurse. I too have been there, and at the age of 44, I decided I was done with fad diets and chasing a lower number on the scale. I was so tired of constantly starting over and wondering why I couldn't get lasting results. I became a nutrition coach and created the Feel Your Best formula for women who want to build muscle, lose fat, and keep it off for good. If you're ready to build a better relationship with food, the scale, and your body, let's build your formula for feeling your best. If you're new here, make sure to check the episode details for the link to my newbie starter guide. You'll receive an email straight to your inbox with everything you need to start building your Feel Your Best formula. I'm so glad you're here. Now let's dive into today's episode. Hello, welcome to the Feel Your Best Formula podcast. I'm Lil, and we are back for part 2 of how to completely change your life in 3 months. If you have not already, go back and listen to last week's episode. And that episode is all about preparing for taking action, the mindset that is required, the work you can do before you start taking action. Don't take too much time with that. Honestly, you can work on your mindset by taking action. And I always encourage you to start taking action before you feel comfortable and before you have all the answers. And often the answers come to you through that process of actually doing. And do you remember in last week's episode where we talked about how there is no single one thing that's going to fix everything for you, and how so often that's kind of what we're looking for? That's what we're hoping to find out every time we start a new program, or we scroll on Pinterest, or we read a blog post, or we watch a YouTube video, or we listen to a podcast. Oh, they're going to tell me the one thing. They're going to tell me the secret. And there isn't one. That does not exist. And so instead, today I'm sharing with you the Feel Your Best Formula framework, which is actually more like 8 things that need attention and consistency if you truly want to change your life in 3 months. 2 important things I want you to remember as we go through this. Number 1, you do not have to do it all at once. You don't have to have it all figured out. Have you ever started a new diet and fitness plan and immediately on day 1, you were supposed to have it all figured out? Like maybe you were given a day or a week to figure out the meal plan and grocery shop and stuff like that. But you were expected, this is a 12-week program, this is a 12-week boot camp. So every single day for the next 3 months, you are doing all these things. And even though they're very different than what you were doing before, you are expected to be 100% on point with these new habits that you really did not really have time to prepare for. And I've been there, I've done that. And it's like you're temporarily being someone else. You are not being yourself. I really hate the quote, day 1 or one day. Have you seen that? That's like a popular one on Instagram. Like, are you going to let this be your day 1, or is it just going to be one day? And what they're alluding to there is perfection. Because yes, it can absolutely be your day 1 of a new perspective, new intention, new mindset, and new habits. But you certainly don't have to be following a restrictive diet and an overwhelming fitness plan and being 100% perfect with it to make progress and make your day count. Also, the second thing I want to talk about is I want you to remember that what we're looking for is consistency and the habits that you do most of the time. Habits determine who you are And I think we stick to the habits that are in alignment with how we see ourselves, how we view ourselves. I personally view myself as someone who works out. And when I'm unable to work out, I feel like this small piece of me is missing. It's kind of like that feeling of forgetting to brush your teeth or maybe not taking a shower. These things that are just part of who you are and that you do mindlessly. And when I do miss a workout for some reason, something feels off, and I look forward to getting back to feeling like myself again. And that means doing my workouts consistently. And that's how you know something is a habit, when you miss it, because it's become part of your identity and you are simply the person who does this thing, and you're not viewing it as temporary, or you're on a diet, off a diet, on a workout kick, off a workout kick. And the way to get to that point where it does become your identity is by holding yourself accountable to being consistent with it. And then one day you'll wake up and realize that this is who you are now. And believe me, I was not that person for many years. And it wasn't until I started working out at home that I actually became that person and created the consistency. And that's just what worked for me. I'm not a gym person. And what we're looking for here is forward movement, right? Your day one is just your day one of deciding to move forward. And it's not about being perfect. So don't confuse consistency with perfection. And I also want to say, I don't know that there's a single point in time where you can pinpoint when the habit becomes who you are. I think it's different for all of us. And I don't know that I can predict that for you. I think it's just something that you will know yourself that day that you don't get a workout in, and you're like, oh, dang it, really was looking forward to that, or you get sick and you're like, I can't wait to getting back to working out. That's how you know it's part of who you are and not something that you're working on or viewing as temporary. But you do have to go through that process of holding yourself accountable to the thing that doesn't feel organic and part of you quite yet. You have to hold yourself accountable until you get to that point, and no one else can do it for you. As we go through this list of, what is the Feel Your Best formula, which I've talked about on here, we're just talking about it a little bit differently today, you're going to see why there isn't one thing. And I bet when you look at this list, you can already kind of pinpoint maybe 3, 4, 5, or maybe 6, or maybe all 8 areas where you could use some help. And maybe you're going to be like, oh my gosh, this is already something that I do. And how cool is that you realize, hey, I already am that person that does this thing, and I can move on to the next thing. And that is the thing that's going to require that effort and that accountability to then becoming the person who consistently does that habit. So, for example, you could slash calories, and you're going to lose weight if you slash calories. But if you're not also looking at your protein intake and strength training, you're going to lose muscle. So, okay, maybe you think you're winning because you're losing weight, but really you're losing and creating a vicious cycle, because you've also probably half the weight that you lose when you do it that way is muscle. There's a little bit of fat, some water weight, some food volume in there, but it's not really leading you in a great direction. Also, a lot of people think the one thing they need to do is, cut out gluten or dairy, but you can go ahead and do those things. If you don't know how many calories you're eating and you're overeating on other foods and cutting out gluten and dairy, it's not going to matter. You're still going to gain weight if you're eating more calories than your body requires. And it's often an easy tactic for diets to just say, oh, remove this one food group, because for a lot of people that is removing a bunch of calories. But at some point you get to a point where you just make it up in other areas. And sure, you could take a supplement for gut health, because a lot of people think these days that is the one thing that's going to fix everything for them. But the best thing to do for gut health is not a supplement. It's just to make sure you eat a variety of plants each week and make sure you're getting enough fiber and drinking enough water. So if you're not doing those things, you can take all the supplements you want. You're still going to be constipated, gassy, and bloated because you're not eating right. So, do you see why it isn't just one supplement, one workout program, or one food that's going to fix everything for you? And I wouldn't even say it's one diet plan, because I don't give you a diet plan. I help you create a plan that works for you using science-based guidelines on what your body needs to thrive by following a macro-based plan. No one knows your life like you do, and it takes courage to get honest about what you're doing right now so you can start making the changes that you want to see, the outcome that you're working towards. And you can try to take what sounds like the easy way out by looking at that for like that one hack or that one thing. But what's actually going to work for you, even if it's more than one thing, it isn't that hard. Just because something is multifaceted, it doesn't equal difficult, right? So you've got to stop looking for the quick fixes and the fads. Instead, focus on what's actually going to move the needle. Because once you start seeing success and feeling better, it's just this self-motivating flywheel where you're waking up and you have more energy. You realize, okay, I want to continue to eat this way. I want to continue to move my body this way. I want to continue to get more sleep. I want to drink less alcohol because I just feel better. But it requires multiple things. It's not just that one thing. So all 8 areas here, it's important for you to understand this is a template, but you get to fill in the details and you get to decide what your day-to-day life looks like and how you build the habits that ultimately create your formula for feeling your best. So number 1, nutrition. Learning how to nourish your body while not on a diet. I talk about this all the time. I did an entire episode about maintenance and how so many people want to skip this step, but it is so freaking important. Learning how to include your favorite foods while eating an overall healthy and balanced diet is so helpful in opening your eyes to where those imbalances exist in your current way of eating. Because again, if you don't know how to eat healthy when you're not on a diet, you're probably very imbalanced and eating most likely more carbs and fats than your body needs when you're not on a diet. And it doesn't mean you need to cut out your favorite foods. In fact, I want you to learn how to include them. But you also need to understand how to make intentional changes in your portion sizes and food choices, and tracking your food so that you can see that relationship with food, exercise, and the scale fluctuations is so helpful. Again, this is all working together. Number 2, tracking your weight at least 5 times per week. And this is really important so you can start building a better relationship with food. You can't do these things in a silo. You can't just eat a certain way and then step on the scale randomly here and there. You really have to be dedicated to looking at both of them on a very consistent, most likely daily basis, so that you can start to understand and see why the scales goes up and down, and stop labeling it as a good day because the scale went down this day or a bad day because the scale went up this day. Day-to-day fluctuations are water weight and nothing to get upset about. But it's giving you this amazing data that can help you see the connections between food volume, carbs, water weight, hormone fluctuations, salty foods, poor sleep versus good sleep quality. You can start making all these connections. And when you let go of that emotional baggage that you have when it comes to the scale, it's so empowering. Yet we have been programmed to fear the scale. I see it every day online in all different forums and health and wellness groups that I'm in. So many people demonizing the scale. And as I've said on here, you got to grow up. You got to get over it. And you got to stop letting diet culture tell you that you can't use this tool that can be so incredibly useful in your life. It literally, in my opinion, is this immature reaction to just reject the scale, forget the scale. It's not helpful. It's just going to bring you down or whatever. No, Look at it for what it is and see how it can be an incredibly useful tool. And it's going to be really useful for you if you ever do fear that you have some sort of health condition going on, where if you're losing weight rapidly and unexpectedly, you could have something very wrong with you. And if you're gaining weight very rapidly and unexpectedly, you could have something wrong with you. And having that data to bring to your healthcare professional is going to help them decide on a treatment and more effectively treat you. So we've got to stop looking at the scale as our enemy and instead realize it can be our best friend. And you can have a really healthy relationship with the scale and take your power back, because if you fear something, you are giving it power. But you got to face your fears, and throwing your scale in the closet is never going to help you build a better relationship with it. Number 3, you have to start strength training somewhere in the 2 to 5 days per week range. And here's the key: you got to learn how to do it properly. This is huge. I talk a lot about this on here. And please remember, just because you're using a dumbbell for your workout in no way means that you were doing an actual strength training workout. This is a huge thing that I work through with my clients. And often when they come to me, they think that they're doing strength training workouts. And one of my clients, it's so funny, she went to the gym, she signed up for a class. It was supposed to be a strength class. And we had our one-to-one session. She's like, you know how I told you I was so excited to go to that class? She's like, I was a few minutes in and I was like, dang it, this is just cardio with weights. And she had gone and she had grabbed, I think, like 20-pound weights, like good size weights. And then she was trying to do these cardio dumbbell workouts with heavy weights, and it was just kind of a mess. And she's like, it was fun, but it definitely was not strength training. And so much fitness out there that tells you you're going to get stronger if you're a woman. So much fitness out there is really just cardio where you're using a dumbbell. If you're not lifting 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 100 pounds during your workouts, you're not doing a strength training program. If that's not on your horizon of what is possible for you and where you are going, if you're not thinking, I want to be able to deadlift 100 pounds, you're not doing a strength training workout. That is the direction you want to be moving. Number 4, start paying attention to your activity level. This is probably one of the most eye-opening aspects of the process. And quite often, many of my clients think they're very active, but when we actually look at the numbers and how many steps they're getting and how they're actually spending their time, they realize they're not as active as they think they are. And getting honest about this and adjusting your food choices, because your activity level does impact your macros and your nutrition plan. And you can increase your activity level if you're not getting enough. I would definitely recommend that, but you also don't have to overdo it. You know, you don't have to be walking 15, 20,000 steps per day. That's overdoing it. But just being honest about where you are and then deciding, do I want to increase my activity level for my cardiovascular health? And do I need to adjust my food choices? Because now I realize I'm not moving much. And if you're not moving much, then your body doesn't require as much energy. So you can't, it's really easy to overeat. If you're sedentary, really easy to overeat your calories. And it's really important in maintenance and in a fat loss phase to make sure that you understand where your activity level lies. Okay. Now, number 5, understanding the importance of rest, sleep, and recovery. This is a huge part of your Feel Your Best formula. And I know, so listen, I had two under 2. My boys are 18 months apart. I'm not sure I slept for 3 to 4 years. I was like pregnant, breastfeeding, taking care of babies. I was in a daze for a very long time. But eventually that ends. You come out of it and you can start working towards better sleep. And when I was in the thick of things, even though I was in no means living my Feel Your Best formula at that time, I was in survival mode, I still took a nap on Sundays. I took a nap on Sundays. My husband traveled 4 days a week for work, sometimes more than that. I was home with 2 tiny babies by myself. We lived halfway across the country. I had no support. When he was home, I was like, peace out. I'm taking a nap and I am resting up, because I wasn't going to be able to survive if I did not. And that's important when it comes to your workouts, and understanding that if your body is telling you that you are run down, you're tired, you are fatigued, it's okay to change your workout schedule around and do it another day. And we need to move away from this idea that if you are sore and exhausted and all these things, then that's a sign that you had a good workout. Yeah, you got to be pushing yourself. But if it is carrying over into the next day where you can barely function because you're not sleeping, then you got to pull something back there. And muscle soreness is not an indicator of whether or not you are making progress. And sometimes sleeping in an extra hour is what your body needs, and you're going to see better results doing that rather than pushing yourself to do a workout when your body really needs the rest. Okay, number 6, being mindful about your alcohol consumption and the behaviors that you exhibit when you're drinking alcohol. Now, we've talked about this multiple times on here, the excess calories, but also, yes, the alcohol has excess calories, but then are you grabbing salty snacks? Are you losing your inhibitions and overeating? Are you sleeping poorly? Are you feeling hungover in the morning? It's just this whole compound effect from having a couple drinks where then these other habits are affected. And I would say that cutting back or cutting out alcohol is kind of a one thing that many people could do that would then have a ripple effect, a positive ripple effect on other areas where they are struggling. Number 7, start building habits and routines that make your fitness and nutrition choices easy. Making these habits part of your daily routine, a solid part of your day and your week, the same way you take a shower, brush your teeth, do the dishes. The feedback I get from my clients is that these tiny habits can be things just as simple as making sure your dishes are done each night, or picking up your family room, getting your workout equipment ready, so that in the morning when it comes time to follow through on that promise you made to yourself, you just feel better about it, and it's so much easier, and you've removed an obstacle for yourself. And you take the guesswork out of it when it just is built in. Okay, it's the evening routine. I'm going to pull out my workout clothes. I'm going to pull my weights from out of their little storage nook in the family room. I want to make sure that I push the coffee table off to the side, that my yoga mat is out. And one of my clients recently started the cutest habit where at night, when after she does her evening routine, she writes herself a little sticky note like, "You're awesome, you've got this, way to go," just very simple notes. And then in the morning, when she walks into her family room, she can just do her workout, and she's left herself this nice little note. She's like, "It's so corny, but I love it." And again, this is an example of being a best friend to yourself. That's what habits and routines are all about, is being your own best friend and helping yourself overcome self-sabotage and excuses, because you've got to, self-sabotage is probably the number one obstacle for most people. And so you got to figure out how to get out of your own way and get this stuff done. Okay, number 8, look at your environment. Like, who do you follow on social media? What type of information are you consuming? Who do you talk to on a daily basis? What types of conversations are you having? Do you have a partner, a group of people that understands your goals? Or are you surrounded by people who complain? This is one thing that gets me, the people who complain about the same problems over and over and over and over and over. I mean, I've been in situations where I haven't seen someone for years, and I'm sitting there, I'm going, oh my gosh, they are still complaining about their husband. Like, go and get a divorce already. I don't really want to hear about it. And it must be such an energy suck to constantly be living in this space where you don't like what your daily life looks like. And the Feel Your Best formula is all about making yourself excited to wake up in the morning. And that's probably one of the biggest changes that I feel, that my clients feel, is waking up each day and feeling good about how you plan to spend your time, because it's about that relationship with yourself. When you have a good relationship with yourself, it's so much easier to have a good relationship with everything else in your life. And that environment is a key factor. From your physical environment, your emotional environment, your relationship environment, really looking at what you're allowing into your life and asking yourself if you need to put up some boundaries and start changing who you spend your time with, who you talk to, and who you follow on social media. Especially, I went through and I unfollowed a ton of so-called experts that I realized these people have these really great lives, and all they do is they show up on social media every day and complain. They complain about the weather, they complain about their kids' schools, whatever. And I'm like, you live in the top like 0.1% for lifestyle of people in the entire world, and yet you show up here every day and complain. I really don't want to hear about it. I want to surround myself with people who are helpful and grateful and happy in their lives. And that's just something I decided for myself. And so when we look at these 8 things that I just talked about, it isn't an overnight process. As your coach, I walk you through this step-by-step process. I meet you where you're at. It's not a one-size-fits-all plan. We decide what your starting point is going to be, like what's going to be your biggest win that we can get for you in the beginning, because feeling like you're winning is how you create momentum. And the best part, when you really start to understand the process and how to work through it yourself, it becomes easier for you to just start to see solutions instead of excuses and obstacles. And it becomes easier for you to stop doing the things that don't work and start implementing the things that will work. And much of my value as a coach, being honest, again, it's not my knowledge about nutrition and fitness and all of those things. What my value really is to you as your guide in your journey is being able to see the big picture for you and kind of close the gap for you to help you build the habits that take you from where you are right now to where you want to go. Because oftentimes we cannot see what's right in front of our face. And you can look at your food tracker and you can look at your habit choices, and I can come in and immediately off the bat, I can see, okay, let's just make this one simple swap. Let's just try to get steps in this way. And it changes everything for you. But it's really hard to come up with your own solutions sometimes, especially in the beginning. What I love to see with my clients is after we've been working together for a while, they'll ask me a question and they will tell me what they're thinking of already for a solution. And that is personal growth and trusting the process and learning to trust yourself. Let me tell you a little secret about body recomposition, because ultimately that's the whole reason anyone starts on a health journey. They want to feel better, they want to look better. And I think when we have this ideal of what we want our bodies to look like, it is strong and lean, right? But you cannot truly work on body recomposition if you can't move away from the mindset of having a goal weight. And whether you've been chasing this goal weight for decades or you just have it in your mind as like, this is what I should weigh, that is not what body recomposition is all about. Do you know what the secret is for body recomposition and why it's so awesome to build muscle and lose fat? Because the more you weigh, the more food you get to eat in maintenance. I spent decades trying to get back down to 125 pounds. I'm 5'5". 125 pounds is very, very lean for my height and also just, my bone structure. I got really close. I got down to 130, but I had to eat 1,300 calories a day to get there. And then Even if I sustained it, I would have had to eat so low calorie and watch every single bite. That is no way to live, and it would be so hard to maintain that skinniest version of myself. So, flipping the switch and working towards the strongest version of myself, that is, I can't even tell you the shift in mindset in the peace that it has brought to my life. I have zero ambition to ever have a six pack. And honestly, people who walk around with a six pack, it's either one, they got really great genetics that make it slightly easier for them than the average person. Or number two, they stick to a very strict and disordered way of eating to maintain very low body fat. I personally did not have a six pack, even at my skinniest. And in fact, this is one thing I would beat myself up about and thought I should keep dieting. Like when I get my six pack, that's when I know, I'm at that goal weight. And I just simply don't have the genetic makeup to easily get a six pack. And I'm not willing to sacrifice my physical and mental health to chase this goal that has absolutely no bearing on my health or happiness. So instead, I'm perfectly happy building muscle, losing fat, and looking more toned, even though it means I will never weigh 125 pounds. I will absolutely never have a maintenance weight that is under 2,000 calories. And I will always be able to happily include my favorite foods. Remember, muscle is more dense than fat. So 1 pound of muscle takes up much less space on your body than 1 pound of fat. Your body will look very different as you gain muscle and lose fat, but depending on your starting point, the scale may stay the same or even go up. For me, it has gone up. I needed to gain weight in order to gain muscle. But you will look and feel so much better, and you'll be able to eat without feeling like you need to be on a diet. So do you want to be skinny, or do you want to be healthy, happy, and strong and get to freaking eat? I've had some very interesting conversation with my clients. Often they recount to me this time in their life where they were at their lowest weight, and they glamorize, this feeling and getting back to that. But when we delve into what did their life really look like when they were at that weight and what their eating habits were like, they admit things were actually not great. Some of them are like, I was actually very disordered. And at the very least, it was unsustainable and not relevant at all for where their life is today. One of my clients was telling me how in her 20s, and now she's in her 50s, that she was very skinny, and it felt easy to be skinny at that time. And she was always trying to get back to that. But when she really sat down and was reflecting on, after a coaching session, some of the things that we talked about and thinking of this new way of doing things, when she'd always glamorized getting back to that weight, she realized, her life didn't look like that anymore. And the reality was, during that time, she was working 3 jobs. She had maybe 1 actual meal per day, and she would skip breakfast and have a Snickers bar for lunch. And no wonder she was so skinny. She was incredibly active, and she was totally under eating. But she was in her 20s, so it's just a different time, right? We do things in our 20s that now, decades later, we don't even know how we survived. And that was 30 years ago for her. Life has moved on. She has grown kids, a great marriage, a great job, and nothing about her life looks like it did when she was at that age. So now she started over. She's building a body that's strong, nourished, and will carry her through the next 30 years. Those habits that she had in her 20s would be an absolute disaster for long-term health and aging. And we need to look past that scale weight, right? And what was required to get there. And we have to decide what we want our future to look like. And that's going to be different than what we're leaving in the past. And ultimately, what our day-to-day habits look like is going to determine what our bodies look like. And of course, we have genetic constraints. I personally have very short, stubby legs. I have to wear, a short ankle length pant. Even though I'm 5'5", I have the legs of someone who's like 5'1" or 5'2". And there's nothing I can do about that, but I can make my legs strong and toned, and I can appreciate how they look, even if they aren't this ideal that, a model would have. There's nothing I can do about that. So why worry about it? And here's the thing, if you create consistency with these habits and building a better relationship with food, the scale, and your body, by committing to the process for 3 months, you will completely change your life. You'll feel so much better. You'll feel more confident. You'll be stronger. You'll start to let go of this idea that you need to focus on weight loss in order to be healthy. Focusing on these habits, it will prepare you to lose fat the right way and keep it off for good. But if you keep trying to lose weight without addressing these things, then you're just going to keep going in the circle. And if you're ready to get started and don't want to go through it alone, then head to the episode details below and just fill out the coaching application, and we can see, would my group coaching, my one-to-one coaching, or just a one-time session, would something like that be helpful in moving you in the right direction? And I've really enjoyed making this episode and last week's episode and just kind of creating a picture for you of what you can do in 90 days. If you've been enjoying the podcast, please make sure to hit that subscribe button so that it always pops up for you. And if you could leave me a 5-star review, that would mean the world to me because it helps other people see the podcast. And I love hearing from you guys and hearing what you think. And I love knowing that this podcast is making a difference in your life. All right, that's all for today. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will be back here in your podcast feed next week. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode of the Feel Your Best Formula podcast. If you haven't already, make sure to check the episode details for my new listener starter guide, and any additional resources mentioned in the episode can also be found in the show notes on my website. You can always find me on Instagram at Macros with Lil, and for more healthy lifestyle tips, recipes, and information on my one-to-one and group coaching services, make sure to check out my website. All the links can be found below. If you know someone else who is ready to start building their formula for feeling their best, please share the love and send them a link to the podcast. I hope you found today's episode helpful, and I'll see you back here next week for a brand new one.